We had a crazy week 1 of NFL action, and well, not that crazy. It was honestly just kind of bad, but there was a few really crazy games that were good. We're going to take a look at the week 2 waiver wire here. Let you guys know which players we think are worth an ad, what kind of fab you should be spending on them, some players you should be dropping, and just overall give you our thoughts on a lot of these players. And Dave, we want to do this now where we are each coming up with a list of players and saying, go add these guys. Like, we just want to sit here and talk about them, even if we aren't recommending picking up these players.
Yeah, and I think, every league is a little bit different. Like if you're, drafting a guy in round 9 that you were relying on to be a starter and he didn't pay off for you this week, you might be looking at one of the guys that we're going to talk about as a potential short-term kind of plug-in. But yeah, usually we see like big blow-up games in week 1 that like really wow us, and we want to go like splash a bunch of fab, or we see a running back go down and open up the door for a backup running back to be that guy. And this was otherwise a pretty quiet week 1, all things considered. We didn't have any of those big blow up games that get us really, really excited. And even the guys that did kind of surprise us were drafted in most leagues as kind of late round darts anyway. So waiver wire is a little bit thin this week, but especially in your deeper leagues, you should always be making moves, kind of churning the bottom of that bench and just trying to get those little edges where you can.
Yeah, churn the bottom of your bench, guys. Do it. Churn that butter. Dave, why don't we start with who is the guy that if you're saying, okay, I need to go make a pickup this week, regardless of position, I need to start someone in my flex next week. Who's that player that you're going out to look for?
I think it's got to be Hollywood Brown, and he's still available
I
in
think so.
about 70% of leagues. And this is very much so a short-term play because we know Rashee Rice is going to come back at some point. Xavier Worthy, we don't know the extent of his injury yet. It's kind of wild. Like everybody's speculating right now. I've heard that it's one of those, like, some people are saying, they popped his shoulder back in, he could put a brace on and he could be fine next week. I've heard other people say that like if there's a fracture in the shoulder, it could be season ending. So,
Right.
we're recording on Monday morning. We don't have all of the information yet. I saw you raise your eyebrows a little bit though, Alfredo. Are you do you have some insight here that I don't know about?
No. I was seeing the same thing, that it seems more common and more likely that this is one of those injuries that might require surgery. And if it
Mhm.
does, like, we could be looking at a 4-week absence, which essentially you're just getting right back into Rashee Rice territory
Right.
with Xavier Worthy, which is not great. Yeah, I think Hollywood Brown is the guy. Um, my confidence level's not very high though on him being
Right.
that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I think for almost all these players we talk about in this show, they're all going to feel like rentals. There's one guy that I think is more than a rental, and we'll talk about him, and it's probably not who people think. But Hollywood Brown, we saw, Dave, what was it, like 18 targets here in week 1?
15. Yeah, it was
15. Okay,
crazy.
I knew
Like,
it was a ridiculous number.
yeah.
Yeah, 15 targets here in week 1. Just, I think a lot of it is, you and I were talking before the show, and you mentioned, is just the Chiefs seem to be scrambling to sort of just figure out who can we get the ball to, and they sort of just put Hollywood Brown in this Rashee Rice role that Xavier Worthy was there trying to play, and then it really wasn't even working out. Like, we had a point where Hollywood Brown had, like, what is it, 8 catches for 38 yards at one point. It just did not look very good unless you were in the PPR monster.
Right. And I look back to last year when Rashee Rice went down. The next week, Juju Smith-Schuster came out and had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 130 yards. Like he kind of looked like a carbon copy of Rashee Rice. And if you're looking for a guy who is going to be able to catch those balls across the middle of the field, break a tackle, turn it upfield, make those big yak sort of plays, I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a little bit better suited for that role than Marquise Brown is. So what I'm seeing right now is like Juju Smith-Schuster kind of being the Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown kind of being the Xavier Worthy, but like we're not even talking store brand here. Like what is like a step below store brand? Like this is like you go to that store where like things are already expired and you get them on sale.
Dude, the
Like
dollar
that's what
store.
this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
You
like
go to
worse than the dollar store.
what's worse than the dollar store? Like, where are you
I don't know.
shopping?
The thrift store. This is your Goodwill version of Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, I think. I mean, it's not good. And that's
So
kind of my fear.
disrespectful. Dollar store was fine. It was right there.
Yeah, maybe I am being a little bit disrespectful here. First of all, I got to say, like, I was a big fan of Hollywood Brown in this Chiefs
Yeah.
offense. Like, I was really pounding the table for it last year, but he just didn't look very good. They were doing like really weird things to get him the ball, kind of using him as an extension of the run game. We hear that term often, but it was like screens, hiding him behind the offensive line, putting him in motion so they can like just get him the ball out in the flat. There were a lot of throws where like Patrick Mahomes wasn't even going into a drop. Like, he was just taking the ball out of the shotgun and just immediately firing the ball off to Hollywood Brown for 2-3 yards. We saw that one big catch that he had, the 49-yard catch at the end of the game. And that was a nice play, but that even felt like it was like kind of broken coverage. They ran this high-low
Yeah.
crossing pattern where Juju Smith-Schuster was the low guy. He pulled the safety down, and you literally see Marquise Brown like waving his hands just wide open behind the defense. So, that can happen every now and then, but like, I'm not banking on that. It wouldn't be surprising at all if like next week Hollywood Brown comes out with similar usage and has like 8 catches for 41 scoreless yards, and that's just not great in fantasy. It almost feels like a Wan'Dale Robinson type of role.
I was just about to say it, Wandale, Hollywood, Robinson, Brown.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh,
Which
what do
really,
you
if
think
you
of the
look, is
odds?
Xavier Worthy, we talked about it a couple times over the offseason. Like, Xavier Worthy was kind of like a souped up Wan'Dale Robinson last year, and that's kind of what Marquise Brown is in that role now, and he probably doesn't have the burst that Xavier Worthy does.
What are the odds that the Chiefs make a trade and try to just get a wide receiver? I
Tyreek
know that
Hill.
it might feel short sighted because it could just be a couple weeks with Xavier Worthy and they've got Rashee Rice coming back. I don't think they can go another season like this, man. Like, the Chiefs offense just looks bad. And especially in a game like this where they just had to abandon the run early, get into passing the ball, and they just looked horribly inefficient. Like, Patrick Mahomes just did not look good. Travis Kelce, I know he had his touchdown that saves his day, but he doesn't look great either.
Yeah, I think Kelsey looked okay. I was kind of surprised that he only had 4 targets because he does look a little bit slimmer and a little bit faster than he did last year. And that kind of corroborates some of the stuff that we were seeing out of training camp, too, that he's in better shape than he was last year. But yeah, he definitely isn't the Travis Kelsey of a few years ago. I think Tyreek Hill makes sense. And we have seen, the Chiefs. They didn't have the best parting with Kareem Hunt a while back, but they were willing to, put that under the table and bring him back last year. I could see them doing the same with Tyreek Hill. Right now, though, like, we're always looking for players to pick up, and we want to say like, oh, this guy is the lead receiver on the Chiefs, but the Chiefs offense isn't great right now. Like, this
No.
isn't where you want to be like, yeah, we need to get a piece of this Chiefs offense. I'm kind of okay not having any Chiefs players on my team in the short term.
And I'll say this because we can get into like how much you'd want to spend on a guy like Hollywood Brown. I'm kind of not like, unless I'm really desperate for a flex play for next week and it's a PPR league, I'm probably not bidding because looking around at what most people are spending, I did the week 2 waiver wire polls over on Twitter and it was pretty even. A lot of people are still being very conservative with their their free agent auction budget, but roughly 32% of people said they would be willing to pay up to 10% of their fab on Hollywood Brown. And I don't think I'm there. Like, I think I'm just comfortable letting someone else in my league win on Hollywood Brown. Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah, I think so. And if we were at like, if this was week 6 and there were a bunch of injuries and bye weeks and all sorts of stuff, I might be willing to go a little bit more aggressive on my Hollywood Brown bid. But the reality is that like by the time we get to that point in the season where bye weeks are getting really, really bad, Rashee Rice is probably going to be, nearing his return. We don't know about Xavier Worthy, but Mark Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, whatever he's going by these days, he's probably going to be the 4th or 5th option on this team by the time you actually can rely on him.
35% of people saying that they would spend over 10% of their fab
Mhm.
is just, I don't want that. I don't want to have to spend that. So I'm willing to lose on that. I want to talk about another guy that I really like coming out of this week. And I did not expect this because you know what? He kind of just flew under the radar. I didn't have him ranked very high going into the season, but Kayshon Boutte has my attention right now. This is just another week where he has looked really good, Dave. And this wasn't, I wanted to check and see, like, was this just out of nowhere? It's not, because it's going back to last year. 3 out of his last 4 games as a starter, he's been a top 18 fantasy wide receiver, and it hasn't all just been, touchdown or bust with him. He is consistently getting a lot of targets. He's had 7 or more targets in 3 of those 4 games. And this last game, he leads the team in snaps. He leads the team in targets. He's out there on 2 wide receiver sets with Mac Hollins. This doesn't seem like it is a Stephon Diggs wide receiver room or that Kyle Williams has a big role right now. Kayshon Boutte seems like the guy.
Yeah, I'm not going to push back there. He does. Demario Douglas, 7 targets, which is about what we would expect to see from him, but very inefficient
Say the
with those
yards. Say the
touches.
yards.
-2, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it was really
Yes.
bad, and he bailed it out with a touchdown and had a carry as well. But Stephon Diggs, I'm not panicking on Stephon Diggs yet, and I think a lot of people are going to go back and watch that film and like really panic on Stephon Diggs. We got to remember he's like way ahead of schedule. A lot of people weren't even expecting him to be on the field week 1, so I think the fact that he's even out there right now is kind of him defying the odds already. It wouldn't surprise me if we see him like by week 4, week 5 start to look like the Stephon Diggs of old. But also, like, we got those reports the first week of camp that like Stephon Diggs looks amazing, and then by week 2, week 3, week 4, they were like, it doesn't quite look as good as he did. So wouldn't surprise me if Kayshon Boutte does just establish himself as the wide receiver 1 here in New England. This was a really, really good prospect. Like, we were talking about him coming out of LSU as being the top wide receiver in his class.
Yeah.
And then in his final year at LSU, he had a really down year, like really just kind of face planted, and there wasn't really an explanation for it. So he went from being like people talking about him like up there with Malik Neighbors as like a top 5 pick, and then he ended up what? No, not Malik Neighbors. It was 2 years ago. I forget what draft class he was in, but fell a little bit and fell to day 3 because of that final year in college. But he's a really good prospect. It seems like he's putting it together now.
Yeah, honestly, all the LSU wide receiver years are just blending together. Like it could have
Right.
been Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or anyone, literally. But yeah, with Booty, the thing was like it wasn't even a talent thing. It was, if I remember correctly, it was like a discipline thing, or
That
if
was
I'm
the rumor.
remembering
Yeah.
there. It was like an off the field thing. And it's taken him a little time to get there, but I think what I liked most is I went back and I was watching the film. I watched all the Kayshon Boutte targets. I watched the condensed all 22 over there on NFL Plus, NFL Pro. Um, what I liked most is that he's not just doing it in any one singular way. He's beating man. He's finding soft spots in zone. And a big thing that I really like is that Drake May is out here looking for Kayshon Boutte even
Mm.
when he's covered. Like he is trusting him to go up and win contested catches. He's looking for him with anticipation coming out of in breaking routes before his head is turned. There's a lot of things that I really like there, and especially with young quarterbacks that are trying to make their way in the league. I'm not gonna lie, I think Kayshon Boutte is gonna be my favorite waiver wire pickup this week. And you can get him for, at least from what I'm seeing when I put out the poll here on the fab, you can probably get him for like less than 5% of your fab. I just like, you can just spend
Yeah.
single digits, very little.
Yeah, I like that one. He's a good player, and I looked it up. It was the JSN draft. That was it. Like people were talking about him and JSN as both being like the number 1 receiver in that class, and then he just really, really fell. What also jumped out to me, I remember his rookie season when he started to like flash a little bit. That was the year, if you remember, Jalen Johnson was graded as like the number 1 cornerback in football, and Kayshon Boutte like put him in a spin cycle that year. There was a play where he just like completely got Jalen Johnson twisted up and gave up the biggest play of the season where he picked up like a 45-yard catch against Jalen Johnson. I remember that immediately piqued my interest because I was like, okay, this looks like the guy that we saw a couple of years ago at LSU. So, yeah, I mean, we talked so much like we liked Demario Douglas because we said this is a wide open wide receiver room, and that's kind of who I had planted my flag on to step up as the guy. But from what we saw in week 1, what we saw at the trail end of last season, Boutte might actually be that guy and is worth a pickup. Even in your shallow leagues, like I will pick him up as a wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 7, just to kind of stash him, see what happens here, and hope that we get some clarity by the time bye weeks roll around.
Go get that Booty, guys. Sorry, I had to do it. Cedric Tillman, another guy who's going to be a popular waiver wire ad. Dave, you and I were talking before the show that the Browns worry me. The Browns worry
Mhm.
me a lot. And I look at this Cedric Tillman, he's been averaging over 9.5 targets per game in his last 5 full starts for the Browns, regardless of who is at quarterback. He's probably the Browns wide receiver 1, even though we didn't draft him that way. The problem is, I don't even know what that means or how valuable that role is for fantasy football, because this to me was best case scenario for the Browns.
Mhm.
Pass heavy game script, bad defense, lots of targets, lots of balls to go around, and it still wasn't that great for really anybody. I don't know that I want to go out spend a lot of money on Cedric Tillman, even though it seems like it might be good.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's the best Browns player to pick up this week, to be honest. I think that it was a weird game overall. Like they stifled the Bengals. Like the Bengals weren't putting up points and they just couldn't score. You've also got the fear that like you said, this is kind of the best case scenario. Like Joe Flacco out there against a bad defense and they couldn't really move the ball all that well. Um,
Did you
you
see
know,
where everything was going for him? By the way, it was all in the flats and all in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and then he had that really, really bad drop at the end of the game as well. I don't know if this is like a wide receiver room that I want to heavily invest in. The guy, and we've got him on the sheet here. We'll talk about him as well. I think Harold Fannin, like we can kind of talk about both of these guys at the same time. Harold Fannin
Yeah.
is the one that kind of excites me. Had the second most snap slots next to Cedric Tillman, and this is a guy who is getting really good usage right off the jump. Like, I don't know if we have to wait for Harold Fannin to pan out. Like, he is already close to a full time player, getting a lot of slot snaps as well. And because of the positional scarcity, like unless you're in a league where you have to start, three wide receivers and three flex spots, I don't know if Cedric Tillman is ever really making your lineup. Harold Fannin's a guy that like a week or two from now, we might be talking about him as just like a plug and play top 10 tight end.
I'm still intrigued. I'm like, I think I'm going to end up being out on Harold Fannin because I don't think I'm going to be willing to spend as much as league mates are. I think there are going to be
Right.
people that are very excited about Harold Fannin because it's the shiny new toy syndrome. What I worry about is I think that it's going to be like an Isaiah Likely situation where there's going to be some weeks where he's the lead tight end in that group, or he's the lead even receiver, like whatever we want to call it, lead pass catcher for the Browns. But then I think there's going to be a lot of those weeks where he's the fourth or fifth guy. And if I don't even know that I want the top pass catcher in the Browns offense. It's something you said before the show is like, what happens if Joe Flacco can't make it through the year and there's a switch to
Mhm.
Dylan Gabriel or there's a switch to Shador Sanders, any of these guys?
Or
What
there's a
and
switch
this
to
was
Quinshon Judkins where they just
that's
say we're
the
going to
next
run the
thing.
ball a lot. We're going to give him the ball 25 times per game.
The running backs were terrible.
Right.
I mean, Dylan Sampson caught a lot of passes out of the backfield. By the way, we're not talking about Dylan Sampson or Keenan Allen because they're just too heavily rostered, which is why we're not bringing them up in today's show, just in case anyone wants. But go ahead, comment down below. Let us know why didn't you talk about Dylan Sampson? Helps the algorithm. But yeah, like I just this Browns offense really worries me, and I know we're trying to find gold in a pile of brown, but I don't know that I want to spend that money on these guys, man.
That's
What
kind of
what
where
makes
I'm at.
you what? Okay, because I was gonna ask, what makes you more excited about Harold Fannin than I am?
The positional scarcity. And that's the thing. I think that we're going to see pretty similar production from Cedric Tillman, Jerry Judy, David Njoku, Harold Fannin. I think that like 10 weeks from now, all of these guys are going to be pretty similar with their usage, with their yardage, with their scoring, and all that sort of stuff. So give me the guy who's going to be cheapest that I could put into my tight end slot.
The 9 targets on 32 routes run is really nice.
Hmm.
I want to watch more of the film from the Browns game because I did not watch a lot of that one. Um, I'm going to be intrigued to see how Isaiah Bond kind of comes up over the next few weeks, what they do with this running game. I think we'll talk about it. I think Jerome Ford might just be a drop. Are you there?
Yeah, I think so. I put together a list of drops, and I don't know if I made if Jerome Ford made the list, but yeah, he was kind of a guy I wasn't really too interested in drafting anyway, because looking at like a you know league average running back on a bad offense who is going to get replaced in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I don't really want any part of that.
Quentin Johnston is a player
Ooh
that
boy.
everyone is very excited about. Gets 2 touchdowns. I'm begging for him to just simply ever have a normal touchdown, but we'll wait and see when that happens. Dave, I think a lot of what everyone's going to be doing this week is trying to figure out what this Chargers offense is, and I don't think that this week one even told us really what this Chargers offense is. This was very out of the norm. It was a very pass heavy game script, and then even when they were ahead in the game, they continued to pass, and a lot of these passes ended up going to Keenan Allen, a guy who, I mean, a great draft pick for people late in drafts. Quentin Johnston, though, gets the 2 touchdowns here, so I think he's going to be a hot waiver wire name for people.
Absolutely, and I think he should be. I think that there's going to be enough going around. Like people are panicking about Lad McConkey, and I don't think there's a reason to panic there. Um, Yeah, I mean, I did bump him down my rankings a bit. I was one of the few that like actually reacted to the Keenan Allen trade. I felt like or the signing, I felt like when that happened, everybody in the industry just kind of like la 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 la. We're pretending like this isn't happening. Like I'm still drafted Lad McConkey in the early second. You and I both kind of bumped him down to like the late second, early third round, and I think that was a fine pick. But Keenan Allen, like this guy had 1,200 yards on this offense 2 years ago. Like he was still the lead target earner last year in Chicago. He's going to be a focal point of this offense. That being said, I think what we saw in week one is kind of what we could expect going forward. Like Justin Herbert is a phenomenal quarterback, and he was banged up all of last year. I think they might have to throw the ball a little bit more than they intended to with the loss of Rashawn Slater. And they've got this big bodied, stout quarterback that can stand tall in the pocket, even under the face of pressure. I think they're going to continue throwing the ball a lot. So QJ is the clear third option in this offense, but I think there's going to be enough passing volume that even as the third option, you can play him as a flex player and he can have these big weeks. Now, yeah, you talk about it. Like it was a weird touchdown, broken coverage, but even in that, like I love the play design there where it was just like a simple mesh concept. There were 7 guys
Did it
in
did
coverage.
it look intentional to you?
Yeah, I
The
mean
the the
that's the whole.
way
Yeah,
Well, because like it wasn't so this was, and I wish we had the film on here, but this wasn't like something where it was a pick play where like Quinshon and another wide receiver were meshing across each other. This was Quentin Johnston literally took his defender over to where another defender was and ran him into him and broke free.
mhm.
Either it's a happy accident or it's actually a really savvy move by QJ.
And that's I think it's a great play design, but I think it's also a good move by QJ. Yeah, and you could see like the defense is focused on Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen as they should be. So if you look at this play, Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen are both bunched to the left, and then you've got Quentin Johnston all the way over on the right side. 7 guys in coverage. One pulls down immediately to stick to Omar and Hampton. So you've got 6 guys in coverage, and when Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen cross across the defense, 5 of these 6 defenders follow Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen. I mean, they pulled the defensive gravity there, and it was just one guy that was on QJ, and he got jammed up in traffic, and he tripped and fell, and QJ was just wide open there. So, like, yeah, technically that will fall under broken coverage, but that just shows that like defenses are going to be so focused on Ladd and Keenan that you're going to have these plays where Quentin Johnston can just walk into the end zone. We saw some other plays that I really liked, like the first big play he had, this 33-yard catch and run. That's exactly what I want to see from Quentin Johnston. They put him in
Yeah.
motion, allowed him to just catch the ball in the flat where he could turn it upfield and rip off a bunch of yards after the catch. Exactly what
Great
he did at
blocking
TCU.
too. Like everything, yeah. They're putting him into his strength of skill sets. And
Mhm.
the only part where I think I get nervous is that a lot of the skill sets sort of overlap between what Quentin Johnston does, Keenan Allen, Lad McConkey. They are different players. Quentin Johnston is going to be better running after the catch, and I love that they're finally not telling him, "Hey man, go for the deep balls." Like that, they're not trying to
Right.
stretch the field with him.
Because
They
he's
are
not
letting
that guy.
him.
He's not a
He's
contested
he's
catch
not.
downfield guy. He's not Mike Williams.
Exactly. They're trying to get him to win on these deep breaking routes across the field, these deep crossers. Like these are the things where he can win on the catch and run, and that's what he, like you were saying. This is what he did so well at TCU.
The
What
one
we're
touchdown though, I do
Yeah,
wanna talk about that second touchdown he had too. That was like a
that is
real
the
wide receiver touchdown.
ideal. Yeah, that is the
Yeah.
ideal Quentin Johnston usage that I would love to see every week.
Mhm. That wasn't just him getting schemed up, that wasn't broken
No,
coverage. That second one was him running straight at a defensive back, kinda drifting left, and as soon as that defensive back turned his hips, then he broke right and just spun that guy around and was able to, like, actually win a route. Like, it wasn't busted coverage, it wasn't a play design. That was just QJ going one-on-one with the defender and actually winning it. So, this is a first round pick with good size, good speed. We saw, like, little steps of development last year. It's not crazy to think that he is still developing and can be a better player than he was last year, who was a better player than he was in his rookie season. So yeah, I think like of all the guys we're talking about today, Hollywood is the one that I think is like if you need short term production, he's the guy that I'd be picking up. But I think of all of the guys that we're talking about, I think Quentin Johnston is the one that could have the most production at the end of this year.
we'll see. I'm very curious. I'm very curious. He had the lowest target per route run out of the 3 wide receivers. I want it
Mhm.
like when you get him onto your team, are you starting him? Or are you just stashing him and seeing where this goes? 'Cause that's the thing is like you're going to end up having to outbid someone who wants to start him this week in their flex spot. So unless you're getting him for cheap and stashing him, that's why I don't like week 1 and week 2 waiver wires, because you basically have to open up the pocketbook and commit to a player.
Right. And it's really tough because if you're in a 10 team league with like a 5 or 6 player bench, yeah, then I think you really open up the book and like, it's so tough talking about fab because every single league is so different. Like you want to get this guy in your team, but I don't know if you can like afford to put him in a lineup in really, really shallow leagues. But if you're in a 12 or
That's
14 team league where you need to start 3 wide receivers and multiple flex spots, then yeah, I think QJ deserves to go in that spot in week 2. Like, even if he isn't drawing targets at an elite volume, we know that he's got the yak potential. We know that they're going to scheme up plays for him in the red zone. And I think that alone is worth flex consideration in deep leagues.
Calvin Austin, another name on here. Did some nice things for the Steelers. The Steelers were surprisingly good. Aaron Rodgers goes out, throws 4 touchdowns. But Calvin Austin is another guy that we're looking at here on the waiver wire, Dave. While I think the performance was good, it's another one of these where I'm just like, I don't want to spend. And I know this is going to become a very boring show if I just keep saying, I don't want to spend on these guys. I don't want to spend on these guys.
That type of week 1, yeah.
We have to give good advice. The fact that like the only one I'm like, Kayshon Boutte seems nice. That's an attractive booty, but like that's it, man. Like I'm not all that sold. And it's weird because you don't normally get target earners on the waiver wire. Right? Like it's that am I out of line saying that? Like normally it's you're picking up a running back or like a tight end streamer, a quarterback streamer,
right.
Someone who sort of falls into something, not 1, 2, 3, 4 5 target earners, 6 target earners. Geez, there's a lot of these guys this week.
Yeah, and I think Calvin Austin too. This is another one like if for anyone who's like paying attention to camp reports, like he was the clear wide receiver 2, and ADP just didn't adjust for whatever reason. Like ADP liked Roman Wilson because he's a buzzy name, and we didn't really see a lot from him his rookie season, and people were hoping he could step out, but like just consistently they were saying like Calvin Austin is going to be a part of this offense. He's the number 2 guy, and what we saw was similar to Quentin Johnston, like a nice mix of schemed up touches that allowed him to lean on his athleticism, but then also some really nice, just like pure wide receiver plays. Like the touchdown that Calvin Austin had was really nice. They kind of set him in motion. He's small enough that he can hide behind the offensive line. And then he leaked out inside of the tight end where he was able to just kind of like maneuver through all of those big bodies and just wide open into the end zone for a nice, easy touchdown. But leading up to that touchdown on the same drive, he had a beautiful contested catch, like where he had good coverage on him. Aaron Rodgers just threw it up there and let him make a play on the ball, and he came down with it. So we're seeing a little bit of both where like he can play wide receiver, but then he's also good enough that they want to scheme touches up for him. So one, I think Aaron Rodgers looked really, really good yesterday. Like Aaron Rodgers looked better yesterday than any game I saw him playing with the New York Jets. It seems like that Achilles injury is probably not entirely behind him. And we got to remember, this is still like a soon to be 41-year-old. He's not going to be looking like a 30-year-old Aaron Rodgers by any means, but had a little bit of a bounce in his step again, like was just zipping the ball into tight windows, and he looked good. So this, like, if DK Metcalf is the wide receiver 1 and Calvin Austin is the wide receiver 2 on a team that can throw for 350, 400 yards on any given week, yeah, that makes Calvin Austin somebody who should be on the fantasy radar.
See, this is a guy where, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the way you were talking about Quentin Johnston just a moment ago is how I think I'm going to talk about Calvin Austin here. Is I do think that DK Metcalf and the tight ends are going to be drawing a lot of attention away from defenses.
Yep.
And what we got to see with Aaron Rodgers was play action Aaron Rodgers. We haven't seen that in a long time. Like we used to see that in the glory days in the Packers where he looked good running play action. This was the first time in a minute where it's actually been good. This is what Arthur Smith does so well. I think this is a good marriage of Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith. How long does it hold up? I don't know. Like how long does the body of Aaron Rodgers hold up? I don't know. I will say this, it's like something that you and I have mentioned is like DK Metcalf might get targets, but I don't know how good those targets are going to be in this offense. He's going to draw a lot of attention. We saw him draw the attention of Sauce Gardner in this game where when he was covered one-on-one, it just was not good. Calvin Austin is probably going to be that guy a lot of times, and seeing it on film, he's the guy that ended up having to be the zone beater. Just sit in the soft spots of the zone, get to the outside, get on some of those out-breaking routes as Rodgers is rolling out, where he can be the next option over the top beyond the tight ends. And I think that's what a lot of teams are going to focus on is the Jonnu Smith, by the way, just ridiculously efficient, 6 targets on 18 routes run. Just nuts. Like that's the Steelers offense.
Smith loves him some Johnny, yeah.
Oh, he does. He does. The Steelers offense, I feel like they didn't give us too many wrinkles, but what worries me about the Arthur Smith offense is that it does get figured out relatively quickly. Like they only have so many tricks up their sleeve with this offense.
And I was fading DK Metcalf pretty hard this preseason because I don't know if his skill set really pairs up with what Aaron Rodgers does well. And what we saw were like really basic routes, like just trying to hit him on slants and like let him catch the ball. And like that's great if you're the secondary option on the team, but that's not what you want to see your wide receiver one doing. And if you look back, DK Metcalf, his best season ever came in 2020 when Tyler Lockett was still at the peak of his career. So having a guy like Calvin Austin, there's a similar skill set there to Tyler Lockett, a guy who is a really twitched up, shifty guy that can play out of the slot, a guy who has the speed to get behind defenses as well. So I think that as Calvin Austin comes on, it might actually benefit DK Metcalf a little bit. But I do feel like I don't want to overreact to week one, but this is kind of confirming some of the priors that I had about DK Metcalf not being a good pairing with Aaron Rodgers. I think this ball is going to get spread out a lot more than people expected. And anyone that was hoping that like DK Metcalf would just be like Devontae Adams, getting 180 targets per game or per season, I don't think that's going to happen with DK this year.
No, and I just don't even know that is like in the Arthur Smith bag anymore. The way he draws up plays, he's drawing up plays to be very simple, 1 or 2 read plays for Aaron Rodgers. We can cut the field in half. This is what he did with Ryan Tannehill years ago. This is what he tried to do with Desmond Ridder. Like this is what the Arthur Smith offense does. He cuts the field in half so that an older Aaron Rodgers who doesn't have the time to move around and sit back there in the pocket can just make the easy throws, use the
Now,
accuracy.
let me push back on that a little bit because I wonder how much of what we've seen from Arthur Smith was him kind of being hamstrung with Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota and some of these other guys. Because the last year that Matt Ryan was in Atlanta playing with Arthur Smith, we saw 626 pass attempts. We saw 4,500 yards. Like Matt Ryan was throwing the ball a lot in that Arthur Smith offense. And I wonder if Arthur Smith,
Well, I'm not
we're going
saying
to
he's
get a
not
lot of
going to throw the
pushback for this.
ball. I'm not saying
Yeah,
he's not going to throw the ball. I'm saying he does run a very particular style of offense that allows his quarterback to make 1 or 2 reads.
I just I've been beating this drum for years now, and I know the YouTube audience never likes it, but I think Arthur Smith might be a better offensive coordinator, a better offensive mind than people realize. And I think that he's pretty good at adapting to the personnel that he has. And I think now with Aaron Rodgers there, we could see him get a little bit more creative and start to open things up a little bit more. I'm excited for this offense. I think that Aaron Rodgers will look good yesterday. I like the playmakers on this offense as well. And I think one of the major takeaways, I don't know if we're going to touch on it in this show or not, though, is the backfield being much different than we expected it to look like.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for a little
When we
bit
get to our
on
cuts, I
here.
think.
Yeah, let's go to tight ends here
Mhm.
because you already mentioned Harold Fannin. Is there anything else you want to add on Harold Fannin? Because I think he's probably going to be the hot name that's going to get pushed for a lot of tight end ads. I'm actually going a different way at tight end, Dave, and I want to get your thoughts on this because Juwan Johnson is a guy that like normally I'd
Yeah.
be like, we kind of know what Juwan Johnson is. The context here, though, it's a little bit different, is that we've got Juwan Johnson with a new quarterback and going back and looking at his previous performances, going back into last year, he's averaging over 9 targets per game in his last 3 games with Spencer Rattler at quarterback. And
Mhm.
that starts to just show me that there is a Spencer Rattler tendency here, especially considering that there's really the wide receivers all on the outside. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, they still got Brandon Cooks over there, Devon Vele. Like, I know Olave was the leader in the receiver room, but even that wasn't great.
And he had
This
4
really,
trips to the medical tent yesterday?
oh God,
It's not
that's
even like being like I'm not
no,
exaggerating. I
it's
think he literally like
no,
4 or 5 times to the medical tent yesterday.
yeah. Every 30 minutes, I was getting an Olave to the blue tent. Yeah, no, it
Mhm.
was not a great evening. But the Juwan Johnson thing here, they don't really have anyone else at tight end right now. Normally they would have Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau. These guys are not available. And I'm wondering if this is just a chemistry that is building between a young quarterback and an athletic tight end that we've all been sitting here for years saying, like, if he gets the volume, he can probably do it. And the volume just has never been there. Now the volume appears to be there with Juwan Johnson.
And something that our friend Andrew Cooper, the tight end whisperer, as we like to call him, he talks about it all the time. Like you want a guy who's going to be number 2 on the team in targets, and I think Juwan Johnson could easily be number 2 on this team in targets. Came
I
up
think he'd be
just
number
short
1.
of having a huge fantasy day too, where Spencer Rattler targeted him on the last play of the game and had a touchdown in and out of his hands that got broken up. So, could be a really, really good player here if he ends up stepping up as that number 2 guy. And the Saints, I kind of tweeted about it with the Browns, saying like, there's bad teams, but there are some like fun bad teams. I think the Saints are kind of like the Browns in that respect, that they might lose a lot of games and they might not be great, but they have some fun pieces there that make them fun offenses that are going to have some value in fantasy football. Unlike I'm sorry, Alfredo. Your
The
Dolphins. They're just
sad
sad
bad.
bad. Sad bad. Not that's
No,
not the type of bad you want to be.
honestly, they're happy bad because like now I can just throw away the rest of this. I don't have to worry about
There
them for
you
the
go.
rest of the
Yeah.
season, right?
Acceptance is the
It's
final step, and
it's
I'm happy that you are there.
oh, it's delightful. It's delightful. Juwan Johnson, by the way, led all skill players in snaps,
Mhm.
routes run, and then he was second on the team in targets. And Dave, that touchdown, that near touchdown that he almost had, would have just been an absolute icing on the. I think if he gets that touchdown,
He's
he's
the number one
probably
guy,
yeah, and I don't even think
number
he's
one
number
waiver guy.
one at tight end. I think number one overall. Like he
Yeah.
is the guy. It's crazy how one play changes that, but
Because it was a
I think
quiet week overall for tight end. I don't think any tight ends had more than 20 points this week. Like it was kind of a down week for tight ends, which is exactly
mhm.
what we saw last year too. Like everybody was saying, the tight end position is dead for the first month of the year, and then everyone kind of came on a little bit stronger. But the guys who had like good usage didn't score touchdowns, and then the guys who did score touchdowns didn't have great usage. So it was overall a pretty weird week for tight ends.
Well, let's say it might be a strange week for tight ends because
All right.
Brenton Strange is another guy on here. That was a good setup. You didn't even know you're doing that. Maybe you did know. I don't know. But Brenton Strange is a guy that I was very interested going into the season. I wanted to see how he worked in this Liam Cohen offense. And this was, even though it was a good day for the Jaguars, it was still a weird day. Brenton Strange gets 4 targets early in the game. He looks good early in the game. And then they just have such a lead that they just kind of run the clock out. And there were so many weird things. Like we didn't see Tank Bigsby for a long time. Brian Thomas Jr. gets 1 catch. Like it's a very weird day.
If he didn't have
It's a
that rushing
strange day.
touchdown, people would be panicking about Brian Thomas Jr. right now.
Yeah, I mean 7 targets for BTJ, but Travis Hunter leads the team, and we're kind of doing a Jags recap here, but that's more so to try to give the context of Brenton Strange here. Is this a guy like if you need tight end, but you're not going to spend up on Juwan Johnson or Harold Fannin, you dropping the 1% on Brenton Strange, or even if you can a 0?
I might. I mean, the first look at this Liam Cohen offense was just a little bit disappointing overall, and I think that there was hope
Really?
for Brenton Strange. Yeah, they just didn't move the ball down the field quite as well as I had hoped. Trevor Lawrence just looked a little bit off. I like the alignment. I like some of the play calls. I'm just a little bit underwhelmed by Trevor Lawrence, and maybe this is just him learning a new offense. But I had higher expectations than what I
Okay.
saw yesterday. That being said, I think the big excitement for me with Brenton Strange in the preseason was that he would play in Evan Ingram's role, and we didn't really see that. We saw Travis Hunter playing so much out of the slot and kind of being that short area of the field target magnet, where Brenton Strange was playing a little bit more inline. He's more of a traditional tight end, which is
Yeah.
great for the offense. Like, did you see? I forget who was on. He had a block on somebody where he just like dropped a shoulder on him and then did like the Allen Iverson over Tyronn Lue, just like standing over him, staring him down, flexing on him. Like he can do that, and that's not something that we've seen Evan Ingram ever really do. So I do wonder a little bit if like his abilities as a blocker will impede his abilities as a pass catcher. But he did look good. I just, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be ahead of him. I think Travis Hunter is going to be ahead of him. And if you're looking at the third option on a team that is probably going to pass for around 3,800, 4,000 yards, I just don't know how reliable he can be on a weekly basis.
I think we have an INC grade for the Jaguars here, where
Right.
I think it's a little incomplete. We need to see where this is going. I think we saw that
ETN looked
Travis
great though.
Etienne
Whew.
can be very good. Yeah, that
Yes.
inside zone run scheme with Liam Cohen for Travis Etienne is chef's kiss. It is perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Brenton Strange here, second most snaps on the team behind Brian Thomas Jr. And I know a lot of that is just simply being out there to block and play tight end, but still 24 routes run, nearly the same as Travis Hunter and Diami Brown, a couple other guys that were out there. So I'm curious because I feel like we really only got one half of what their real offense is. And then once the Jags were up, they have the weird rain delay because the thunderstorm and all that. I'm curious. I want to see how they are in the next coming weeks. By the way, just random, just for funsies, because I want to throw this name out there. The Quentin Allen was out there.
Second running back behind
I don't want to say quite a bit,
ETN.
but it was surprising. He was the second running back out there early in the game, out on passing downs.
I don't think
Uh,
Bigsby came in until the fourth quarter, right?
second half.
Ugh. Yeah,
Yeah,
not good.
it was not great. Not great. Bashal Tutin gets a little bit of run in there as well, but it seems very clear there's a Travis Etienne backfield. All right. Quarterback, any interest in Daniel Jones?
Yeah,
He's got
yeah,
Denver next week.
yeah. Which that's a tough matchup, but I am interested. Like Daniel Jones looked really good, and I talked about
Miami
it a
might
lot this
also be the
preseason.
absolute worst team in the NFL.
I don't know if maybe is even a
You're right,
required
they are.
prerequisite there. They're just they're bad, dude. Like I wouldn't be surprised if
When
we get.
people were bothered that Storm Duck got injured, and this is no shade at Storm Duck,
Mhm.
uh, and they were like, "Man, our secondary's really screwed now." Well, we kind of been there, man. Like I don't know. I want to believe in Daniel Jones and the Renaissance here, but it just kind of seemed like it's a cupcake opponent. I want to see what happens next week against Denver.
3 years ago, Daniel Jones was the QB9 in fantasy, throwing the ball to Darius Slayton, Richie James, and Isaiah Hodgins as his number one receivers. Like this guy has rushing upside. And Shane Steichen, we
Sure.
got to remember, came from Philadelphia, where he kind of designed this offense that we've seen Jalen Hurts flourish in. And that's why we were so excited excited for Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago, because we said, well, he's going to turn him into Jalen Hurts. What if he turns Daniel Jones into Jalen Hurts? I mean, little tongue in cheek here, but Daniel Jones is a very good rusher. And now he's
Get your
multiple
tongue out of your
years
cheek.
removed from that ACL tear. So, I think the team looked good. It's as simple as that. And this is, we've never seen Daniel Jones in a situation like this. Like, I think right now, you could say Jonathan Taylor, where he's at, not that much different than when he had Saquon Barkley on his team, but a better offensive line, better tight ends, better wide receivers. I mean, Tyler Warren kind of had a quiet week, but that was because they just ran the score up so much that they didn't have to throw the ball in the second half. But like, my goodness, like this team looks good. Michael Pittman is healthy. He looked dominant. He looked like his old self again. Tyler Warren looked incredible. Jonathan Taylor looked incredible. The offensive line looked good. Daniel Jones just throwing the ball with pinpoint accuracy. And again, I'm just going to flash back to like the last time we saw Daniel Jones healthy on a halfway decent team. He was a QB1. It wouldn't surprise me with the rushing upside here if we see him finish the year with double-digit touchdowns, 600 rushing yards, and that could easily push him into that top 5 discussion. So, I think like if you drafted, I hate to like say it's time to panic on Bo Nix. I'm not saying you should drop Bo Nix, but like next week, I might have Bo Nix behind Daniel Jones in my weekly rankings.
I think Daniel Jones is Bo Nix.
Yeah.
He only had 4 pass attempts beyond 10 yards in that game. Everything to the left side within 5 yards. Dave, he had a third of his passes were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage and to the left. They were like a kid in Madden, just spamming the same play over and over. They got the ball into the hands of Tyler Warren a lot early in this game. They got the ball into the hands of Michael Pittman as well. They didn't ask Daniel Jones to do too much. And I think that's the good thing here is the Dolphins didn't really bring a lot of pressure against him. Daniel Jones can make some easy reads, some easy throws. What I get worried about is what happens when he goes up against the Broncos, who are quite a bit better, and they're going to put some more pressure on him. And would I add him? Sure.
I just want to say, like what you're saying about Daniel Jones right now, same thing that we hear about Jalen Hurts for the last 3 years. Is that like it's just such a simple offense. They just, he's just a product of the offense.
You cannot, Dave. Not in no breath can you compare Daniel Jones to Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts.
I just did. I mean, like they're not asking him to do a whole lot. Like he is surrounded by very, very good playmakers. And all they're asking him to do is turn around and give the ball to Jonathan Taylor or throw it to Michael Pittman, throw it to Tyler Warren, throw it to Josh Downs, or run with the ball. And if that's what that offense is going to be, that's simplistic, that can print fantasy points every single week. And I think we're seeing a more athletic than people realize quarterback in a system that is going to allow him to accrue a lot of fantasy points. It might not be pretty. They might not win a ton of games. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is going to win a Super Bowl and be the MVP this year, but I think that he could easily be a QB1.
So that's the thing that worries me most is when we talk about like how you said the simplistic offenses can print fantasy points. To me, that's an expiring produce right there. Like that's the organic produce that's going to expire really fast. It's good for like a week or two, and then it expires quickly. That's why like I get worried with the Aaron Rodgers Steelers and the Daniel Jones Colts, and it looks really good right now, but we see it all the time where these week 1 offenses just they turn into a pumpkin after a couple of weeks.
So let me ask you, if you drafted
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, would you start CJ Stroud next week, or would you
I
pick
mean,
up Daniel Jones and play him over CJ Stroud?
that's very different, man. Like CJ Stroud was like my quarterback 20 in rankings. Like,
Same.
yeah,
But a lot of people drafted him. Like his ADP was a lot higher than that. So like we were low on CJ Stroud, but a lot of people were
yeah.
drafting CJ Stroud to be a starter. A lot of people were drafting Bo Nix to be their starter. And like I just saw two quarterbacks that looked awful last week. And I'm not advocating to drop either of these guys, but I might advocate to go look at Daniel Jones or Aaron Rodgers and put him in your lineup over him.
Daniel Jones, I haven't started the week 2 rankings yet. He'll probably be somewhere around like quarterback 15 or 16 for me in those rankings.
Yeah.
All right. Some running backs. We're just going to run through these really quick because I don't really think there's a lot that's actionable here from these guys. It's just sort of, if they're there, you have the spot. It's not going to kill your waiver priority or anything like that. Kendre Miller is the obvious backup for Alvin Kamara in this offense. Blake Corum for Kyron Williams. Kenneth Gainwell had a surprising role, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with the other running back in the Steelers offense. And then DJ Giddens as the backup for Jonathan Taylor there. He didn't look great, but he's the clear backup. So just some handcuffs to take a look at. Dave, let's get into players that we would drop because this is intriguing. We already talked about Jerome Ford a little bit. I think I'd just be done with Jerome Ford. I don't see that there's any sort of value there in either the passing game, the run game, anything for him, especially when Quentin Johnston comes back. Are you kind of same boat?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, easy. Caleb Johnson. I put a question mark here on the show sheet because I think a lot of people are going to ask, should I just drop Caleb Johnson? My initial answer is going to be no. Because I think if you drafted Caleb Johnson, I was hoping you would not be expecting him to be some sort of starter out of the gate. All the reports was that Jaylen Warren was the starter. We knew that Caleb Johnson had this problem. I want to hold on for a few more weeks here. I don't think that holding on to Caleb Johnson at the end of your bench is what kill, especially in a bad waiver wire week like this.
Yeah, and again, it's all like dependent on the league that you're in. If you're
Sure.
in a 12 team, 8+ bench spots, yeah, you're holding on to Caleb Johnson. But some of the guys that we talked about, like if you're in a 10-team league with 5 bench spots, I'd probably move off of Caleb Johnson and pick up Quentin Johnston. Like I don't think that that's crazy at all. First of all, I wasn't the biggest believer in Caleb Johnson. Didn't really like him all that much as a prospect. Yeah. I kind of bought into him getting plopped into the Najee Harris role, but I don't think that's going to happen. The big thing for me with Caleb Johnson too is that Aaron Rodgers, 41 years old, about to be 42 years old. He needs somebody who can pass block well. Jaylen Warren is a very good pass blocker. Kenneth Gainwell is a very good pass blocker. And even if Caleb Johnson is a better rusher than those guys, I think they need somebody out there that can protect their soon to be 42-year-old quarterback. And I think that is pretty important here. So again, wasn't the biggest fan of Caleb Johnson to begin with. Worry about him getting buried on this depth chart a little bit. And I don't think this is oh, I can't believe you dropped Justin Jefferson because he got off to a slow start. We're comparing a first-round wide receiver in this instance to a third-round running back. And I just have some concerns about Caleb Johnson as a whole. So in shallow leagues, I would be okay moving off Caleb Johnson at this point. And, if he starts to pick up some steam mid-season, you can rebid on him. But I do think like the worst case scenario is that he just sits on your bench all year and ends up doing nothing. I'm okay moving off of players like that now in short leagues.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a 10-team, 5 bench spot, sure, you can go for that means Dylan Sampson is probably available. Go out and grab him and just play these weeks in the pockets that they're in. I think what's keeping the light on for me with Caleb Johnson is sure he gets 1 touch for -2 yards, but all of the running backs in Pittsburgh looked pretty bad, and this Jets defense actually might be better than we expect, especially with being run by Aaron Glenn there, or at least the run defense, because the pass defense just got absolutely obliterated. Nobody looked good in that Steelers backfield. And I wonder how long can the team just keep going with poor running until they're like, okay, let's mix things up. That's my only thing. I'm not cutting him just yet, but I get it if you need to do it for like a Dylan Sampson type in a shallow league. Wide receivers that can be dropped, Dave. Some of the names on this list that we've got here: Xavier Legette, Trey Harris, Marvin Mims, Xavier Hutchinson. Some of those names are probably like deeper leagues. Like I don't think there's a lot of shallow leagues that drafted Xavier Hutchinson, but I think there are a lot of people that went out and drafted Xavier Legette and Trey Harris and Marvin Mims with the excitement of the breakout. And it kind of seems, at least for Mims and Legette, it's just more of the same.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, Trey Harris was a guy that like I love the prospect coming in, but paying attention to the Chargers training camp reports, like it was very obvious that he was going to be the fourth or fifth option on this team and
Needs
struggling to
time.
get on the field. So I think yeah, you can move off of him. If Quentin Johnston gets injured or if Keenan Allen gets injured, then maybe we put a bit in. But in shallow leagues, especially, he is a roster clogger right now. Andre Yosavash is another one that I'll throw
Mm,
out there. Don't want to like panic yet, but like we were hoping that this team would just be what it was last year, where they were throwing for 350, 400 yards every single week. And we could see these splash weeks from Andre Yosevich, but was not involved at all yesterday. Noah Fant was much more involved than we expected. Mike
yeah.
Gesicki still had his role being pretty involved. So I almost wonder now if Yosevich ends up falling to like the fourth or fifth option on this team. And, I do expect the Bengals to turn it around. I don't think they're going to be as bad for the rest of the season as they looked yesterday, but he's another guy. Like I'd move off of Yosavash for some of the other names that we mentioned today.
Yeah, I wasn't even expecting you to bring that name up because like he's not even someone that I was considering as droppable because I didn't think he was very heavily rostered. Yeah, the Trey Harris thing, it's like he's gonna take time to get better. Xavier Legette, man, if there was, it's once again, it's what I like to ask after week one is, are these situations sustainable or did we see them in the best possible scenario and did it not work out?
Mm.
And we saw the Panthers in a very pass heavy scenario, and there still just wasn't what we wanted to see for Xavier Legette. Marvin Mims just wasn't out there as much as we thought, especially after what we saw in preseason. It wasn't right. Xavier Hutchinson ends up, I believe, if I remember this correct, Dave, not getting the start. Jaden Higgins did get the start
Yeah,
over him.
Jaden Higgins had some nice catches too. He looked pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So it's just uh, trim the fat, and go play in these pockets. These 2 to 3 week windows where you can win some games.
And with
Dave,
us, the tight ends we were talking about too, like
mhm,
Juwan Johnson, Brenton
yeah,
Strange. If you drafted Kate Otten for whatever reason, I know he was kind of like a buzzy name that a lot
sure.
of people were liking. Definitely cutting him to make room for those tight ends too. Just another name that I'll throw out there that like last year, we saw this little flash in the pan where he was like really, really good when everybody was injured. But now with Igbuka playing primarily out of the slot, there just isn't a lot left over for Kate Otten, which shout out, yeah, Buka, another guy. Like we talked about JSN and Ricky
Yep.
Pearsall during the cold open, but Buka as well. Good to see guys that we like really planted a flag on this offseason, just coming out week one and looking like absolute studs.
Yep. Yep. And we're gonna see it keep happening, hopefully. Um, I wanted to ask you about this. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just forgot what I was going to ask you, man. There was another. Oh, Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He was a late scratch, a healthy and active.
Yep.
Is that a guy that you're comfortable just cutting right now? I know a lot of it is that Jeremy McNichols is the special teams guy. So
Yeah.
the Commanders went out there with Bill and Austin Eckler.
Yeah. Brashard Smith too, another like deep buzzy sleeper that people were drafting, got the healthy scratch week one. So yeah, those are guys that I'm pretty easily
Um,
moving off of.
let
Was
me double
Brashard
check that
Smith
name.
active?
Yeah, Brashard Smith was totally active.
Oh, you're right. He just did
Yeah,
nothing.
he got touches. Don't worry,
Yeah.
we'll edit that out. It's gonna look great. It's
No,
gonna
you can
look
keep it
great.
in.
That's
Shoot
about
from the
time
hip
when we're
here.
like, okay, we've gone too far with the show. Guys, we're gonna be back again on Wednesday, where we're gonna be doing something a little bit different. Where Dave and I are gonna go back, look at the previous week, and come away with our biggest takeaways, maybe our biggest questions from that week, and some of the things that we just kind of want to solve. Some of these mysteries there in fantasy football, and ask: are we panicking about these players? Are we confident in these players? Sometimes it's gonna be trade stuff. Our Wednesday is gonna be what we call our flex show. So you're gonna see something different there every week. And then Thursdays, you're going to be getting your starts and sits of the week there, where we just want to get you guys some help for your lineups. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we're going to be bringing you all this content throughout the entire season. And we've got a bunch of other Football Guys channels as well. The Audible, we've got the Football Guys Live channel, we got the Football Guys Dynasty channel. There is just so much. So make sure if you're on YouTube or listening on Apple or Spotify that you subscribed in any of those places. Well, as always, I want to thank everybody for watching or listening all the way through. For myself, for Dave, we'll see you next time. Adios.